But it's as many of you guys know, I started my career in law enforcement, so I know a lot of cops, and so that's who I can get in here. But I'm excited and I'm honored to announce that we have a good speaker here today, Deputy Todd Thompson. We also have Sheriff Scott Chitwood. Thank you, Sheriff, for being with us today. But Deputy Thompson is 41 years old and grew up in the south end of the county off of Carbondale Road. Deputy Thompson has been married to Anna Thompson for 15 years and have one daughter, Emma, who is 13 and attends North Whitfield Middle School. Deputy Thompson graduated Southeast High School in 1997 and is a member of the Dalton Noon Lions Club and is a board member of the North Georgia Fairgrounds. Deputy Thompson is currently in the process of completing a management program through Columbus State University. Deputy Thompson began his career with the Sheriff's Department in 2003 and was promoted to K-9 deputy in 2016. Thank you, Todd, for being with us. I'm glad to call you a friend, and we look forward to hearing you speak.
Okay. Thanks, Rick. I tend to walk around a little bit when I talk, but I'll try not to bore y'all guys too much with some of my accomplishments, but I'm going to kind of start off with just kind of giving a brief story of Eddie. It's very interesting how all this came about. We got to look at the facts, and it was very odd. There was a time in law enforcement when things get stagnant. Ricky worked there for a long time, and sometimes things get stagnant and you're waiting and looking for an opportunity that maybe you could jump on, whether it be a drug detective or maybe it be court services, or, you know, anytime you can move around. So I got a phone call. I was out one day and I got a phone call that said, "Hey, Todd, they posted on the memo board that they're thinking about starting a K-9 unit." And I said, "No way." And they said, "It's on the memo upstairs." And I said, "You're kidding." I got off the phone with the deputy and actually drove to the sheriff's office, walked upstairs and looked at the memo and read it and thought, wow. So the wheels started spinning, because I always told late Lieutenant Fran Rice, who passed away, he always said, "Todd, you know, why don't you do this and why don't you do that, and you ought to do this." And I said, "Lieutenant, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at, truth be known, but if they ever start a K-9 unit, I'll be the first person to put my name in the hat." And he laughed. He said, "I don't think we're ever going to do that, son." So years goes down the road, and speaking of Fran, he actually was a K-9 handler for years for us, and he was actually a K-9 handler. He handled a dog in the military for a while too. But with that being said, so it was true, they're going to start a K-9 unit up. So I thought, this is fantastic. So most people put their name in the hat, per se, as we did. We wrote Captain Sweeney a letter at the time of intent, what we call it, saying, "Hey, I would like to do this job. I would be the best at it because of this or whatever." So I talked to my wife, Anna, on the front steps every day for maybe about a week or a week and a half about what the job would inquire. And I know how much time and dedication and commitment this would be. I'm going to be bringing somewhat of a disturbance into the house, and are you ready for this? And financially, how is this going to work? And so I wasn't actually one of the first people to give Captain Sweeney a letter. I went home and really thought about what this means to me and what this is going to mean to not only me, but to my wife and my child. And what am I going to have to do as far as what the department wants out of me? So finally, one day, my wife looked at me and she said, "Todd," she said, "you don't have to convince me to do this job. I know you want to do it, and if you want to do it, do it." And I said, "Well, Anna, I got a really good feeling in my heart that if I put my name in the hat, I'm going to get this job. Something tells me that I'm going to be the guy that ends up getting this job." So I ended up, Fran actually called me and he said, "Todd, are you not going to put in for this job?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I am, but I've really been thinking about it, and I just want to make sure that this is the right choice, not only for me, but for my family, and also the right choice for the department." So I put in for it, and Captain Sweeney called me and he said, "Son," he said, you got the job if you want it. Do you want the job?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And he said, "Todd, do you want the job?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And he said, "Okay, Monday morning you go to Alabama for 3 months, and you'll meet Eddie. You'll meet the dog, and you'll learn how to bond with him, and you'll be there for 3 months. I think you get to come home on the weekends, and good luck to you. If you need something, just let us know." So I packed up. I'm all excited about it. I told my wife. So I go out to Alabama, and Ricky Farley, the owner, looked at me and he said, "I got a real nice dog you're going to like. His name's Eddie. You're going to really like him." So the next day I went down and I met Eddie, and I still got pictures on my phone. First time I ever met this dog. It was the prettiest dog I've ever seen in my life, and I instantly felt a connection, and he could care less about me. The dog came from the Czech Republic. He was 10 months old at the time. He cost about $16,000. Didn't know how to do anything. Didn't know drug work. Didn't know how to apprehend anybody. He didn't know how to lay down on command. The dog knew nothing. But it was his bloodline that we paid for, and he came from a reputable supplier, and like I said, came from the heart of Europe. He came with a passport. He came with a CD that has his whole entire bone structure on it. His lineage goes back generations, I imagine, with the working dogs. So he came from a proven place. So I met Eddie, and it was tough. I will actually say school was a little bit tough. It was the first experience I ever had of a dog biting me was not real fun. And that's part of doing what we have to do is you got to actually, what they say, take a bite from a dog. So they'll give you a bite sleeve and they'll say, hey, put this on your left arm and go out there and hide behind that tree. And I'm like, okay, and then what? Just hide behind the tree. And then when the dog comes, just catch him on your arm. And so that was kind of some of the instructions I got. So I get out of school, and I'll say that to say this. When I got out of school, I had learned just enough to be dangerous. I taught the dog how to track a human being running through the woods. I taught the dog with the help of an instructor teaching me how to do drug work. It's actually a fairly simple process. And I taught Eddie how to do all the apprehension aspects. Bite somebody when I tell you to, search a room, search a house for a burglary suspect, come off the bite when I tell you to. But he was young. And I remember when I was at school, everybody was renaming their dogs, because these dogs kind of come pre-named, and it's kind of the same names. You know, it's always the same names. Well, a lot of people in school was renaming their dogs cop lingo, Narco, Kilo, Cash, all this stuff. So it kind of got me kind of wanting to change Eddie's name, because, you know, that was kind of funny when I first heard it. So I went home, and I was on the fence. I was talking to Captain Pangle. And he said, are you going to rename him, Todd? And I said, I think so. What are you going to rename him? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm thinking about maybe Cash or something kind of cool. So I got to take Eddie home for the first time, and I still got the picture on the phone. I took him home in muzzle for the first time because I didn't really trust him. He didn't trust me. I didn't really want him biting my kid because he's a bite dog. So I remember going down the hallway and my kid meeting him, and we were taking pictures, and Anna was on the ground with Emma, and Emma looked at me and she said, Dad, what's his name? And I said, it's Eddie. And she laughed. And I think she was about 8 years old at the time, and she laughed and she said, you got to rename him something other than Eddie. That doesn't sound mean at all. As soon as she said that, a light bulb went off over the top of my head, and I said, no, his name's Eddie. And it stayed Eddie. And the reason I say that is because I knew what kind of dog he could be. And I knew one of these days he might bite an individual and apprehend somebody. And I knew one of these days I might be in a courtroom setting. And I knew that one of these days that we could, you know, be on the front page of the newspaper on something that we done. And I just always thought that Canine Eddie would sound a whole lot better than Canine Narco or Killer or something like that. So let me fast forward a little bit. So I got introduced to Chattanooga Police Department. The sheriff and the major and the captain was nice enough to let me go up and train every Wednesday is my training day. And I go up and train with Chattanooga Police Department's established K9 unit. They've got about 7 or 8 dogs. They've been in business for a long time with dogs. So they brought me in with open arms. And I remember going up there and seeing what all their dogs could do. And it was amazing. All the agility stuff that they can do, all the off-leash obedience, the hand signals, the building searches, jumping over things, crawling under things. You can throw a set of keys, or you can throw stuff out in a field. A dog can find it, indicate. It was amazing what these dogs could do. So my first day I went up to Wednesday training. I came home a little bit depressed, a little bit down and out. And my wife looked at me and she said, honey, what's wrong? I said, they're up here and I'm right here, and I don't know how to get there. Their dogs can do this and this and this, and Eddie don't know how to do anything. It was almost embarrassing the first time I got Eddie out of the vehicle, because he ran up to everybody else and was smelling them and letting them pet on him. He's a very social dog. You'll get to see it here in a little bit. He's a very friendly dog, and a lot of their dogs are not like that. They had a policy and procedure in place that nobody pets their dogs, nobody touches their dogs. Their dogs don't live in the house with their family. So I was kind of just trying to figure out what is the do's and don'ts for us. What's the right or the wrong way to do this? How do I make this succeed? Major Gibson looked at me in my face, sitting down in his office, and he said, son, you will make or break what we're trying to do with this program. And he said, I know that's a lot of pressure but you will make or break what we're trying to do with this program. And I said, okay. So I got attached with Chattanooga, and they do a certification every year. The state of Georgia doesn't even require us to even certify our dogs, but I think it's best to certify our dogs, just like we have a certain amount of hours we got to do every year. I think even judges have a certain amount of things that they have to do every year. It just looks best to have some type of nationally known certification attached to me and the dog in case we ever need it in a courtroom setting or in case I ever need it, period. So Chattanooga does USPCA. It's the United States Police Canine Association. The courts hold that certification as the highest bar setting certification out of all of them. There's 5 that's nationally recognized, and I do the one that is the most held to the highest. At one time, I did 3 certifications. I had Eddy NNDDA, I did NAPWAD, and I did USPCA just because I wanted to get a feel and I wanted to go with the one that I thought we should go with as a sheriff's office. So USPCA was it. The first year I ever certified with Eddy was in 2017. And out of 30 dogs, I was very nervous about doing this. And Barry, the head trainer, came up to me and he said, Todd, you're going to certify us with us this year, aren't you? And I said, I'm going to try. And he said, I think you'll do okay. I think you'll do all right. So the first year out of 30 dogs, I came in maybe 29th, 28th place. On my way back, Captain Pangle called me and he said, well, how'd you do? And I said, I passed, boss. I passed. I said, we got a certification. I passed. I mean, it was by the, just by the hair, skin of my teeth, but we done it. And I said, but Clay, they give out trophies. They're giving out trophies up here for first, second, and third. And if you do good enough, you can go to the national stage and compete with the big dogs, some of the best in the country on a national level. I kind of want a trophy. And he said, well, Todd, if you want a trophy, then go get one. And I said, it's not that easy, but I'd like to try. In 2018, we went down to Rome for my other annual certification. Out of 30 dogs, I came in first place. I got a trophy. I got invited to the national stage in Huntsville, Alabama. I went to the national stage in Huntsville, Alabama. I met some of the best people, some of the best dog handlers, some of the best dogs, made a lot of connections from people to Maine, to LA, to Florida, you name it. People from all over the place was there. And I thought, wow, I've been doing this for 2 years and I'm on a national stage with this dog. This is phenomenal. The next year, we went to a competition in Chattanooga. I came in first place again, got another trophy, and got to bring it home and show Sheriff Chitwood and everybody and my coworkers. And I thought, this is unreal. So I got another invitation to the national stage. Me and my wife and Eddy got to go to Albany, Alabama, or Albany, New York this time and compete on another national level. So this year, COVID hit. Things has been weird. I don't have to tell you all that. It's been odd. Training hadn't been as good as it could be. There was so many weeks and months where we didn't train because protest was happening in Chattanooga and the COVID stuff was happening. It had everybody worried. Well, then Eddy got hurt. Something happened to Eddy's back leg, and I kept it real quiet. I didn't want to tell anybody about it. And I thought, golly, I hope he's going to be okay. And I took him to the vet, and we couldn't figure out what was going on with his leg, and we put him on some carprofen. We had x-rays done. We just couldn't figure it out. So certification came about. Me and Dr. Richmond, and with the help of Captain Pangle, Captain looked at me and said, look, Todd, if that dog needs 2 months of rest, give him 2 months of rest. If he needs 4 months of rest, you know that dog better than anybody does. Give him what he needs. So I left him at home for a while. Within that period of time that he stayed home, he gained 6 pounds. That's a lot for a dog. I couldn't get it off of him. Certifications is coming up. I was a little bit anxious. I was a little bit excited. I was a lot nervous about it because I thought, the past 2 years on this, I'm not quite sure how we're going to do this year because of how things have been going. With that being said, the certification this year was held in Madison County, Alabama. And out of 33 dogs, we came in first place again. Brought another trophy home, won a gun, won 4 medals. We've done very well. The first year I went to certification, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I guess I am. The first year we went to certification, I remember sitting in a room and all I wanted to do was pass. And a guy walked in and they said, that's the guy that's going to win it. That guy right there walked in. You ought to see him and his dog. They're good. Now, 4 years into this, when me and Eddy walk into a room, people say that about us. And it's a humbling feeling. It's nice. I never imagined all this would happen. And Ricky wanted me to hit on, last year I got contacted by somebody from the A&E network, and they said, hey, we're doing a show and it's going to be called maybe America's Top Dog, America's Greatest Dog. We're not real sure what we're going to call it, but would you be interested in doing it? So I talked to the sheriff and the major and the captain. They said, yeah, you know, as long as you don't go out there and make a fool of yourself, sure. We'll let you do it. So I'm going to grab me some water. So I went and I done the show. Me and the wife flew out there with Eddie, and it was really neat. It was a really neat experience. They paid me, the network gave me a $750 stipend check. I met a lot of really neat people. There is such a thing as Southern hospitality, and it does not exist out there. It was a very interesting place. The plane ride was neat. They really treated me really great. They put me up in a nice room. I was actually the very first dog handler and a dog to actually do the course. I was the actual first person to do it, and it had been tested by a bunch of different dog handlers to see if the dogs could even do the stuff we was going to ask them to do. But I remember the man took a hat off and he said, I'm going to put all 5 of y'all's names in a hat and I'm going to shake it up, and whoever I pull out of the hat goes first. And it was me. I kind of figured it was. So I was episode 1, but I was actually episode 6 on TV, and I won my episode, and I won $15,000. They wrote a check to the sheriff's office, and I framed it at the house. I got a copy of it and framed it at the house. So they gave the sheriff's office $10,000 of it, and $5,000 of it I donated to some guys up in New York that helps dogs nationwide. It's kind of very similar to the Georgia Police Canine Foundation. They help military dogs. They help dogs with surgeries. Anytime a dog ever retires from the police departments or sheriff's office, a lot of times the dog handler assumes and takes on the responsibility of what life left that the dog has. And sometimes the sheriff's office or the department, they'll wipe their hands clean of the bills. And a lot of times, y'all know how expensive some things can be involving not only humans, but as far as surgeries go for animals and stuff too, and feeding them. But so I donated the money to them. So I came home, and I'd had a trip planned the very next week for my family, me and my wife and my kid and a friend of my kids. I'd spent about $2,000 on a credit card. We had a planned trip to go to Las Vegas. It was already bought and paid for. 3 days after I got home from winning my episode of America's Top Dog, I got contacted by the network again, stating that they wanted me to come back to the grand finale to compete for the ultimate title and for the $25,000 prize. And I said, oh, that's awesome. That's great. When is that? And they said, it's next week. So I had to talk to my wife, and I said, I know we got a bought and paid for vacation out in Vegas, but they're wanting me to come back to LA for a finale. What should I do? And my wife, bless her heart, she said, Todd, look, Las Vegas is always going to be out there. And I understand it's $2,000. We'll try to get some of that money back. And if we can get some of that money back, great. And if we can't, we can. I think this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You've done good with it. I think this is going to help things out for y'all. So we're going to LA. So I said, okay. So I called back one of the representatives from the A&E network, and I told him what I just told you guys, that I had a bought and paid for trip. I'm going to lose $2,000. And I said, so with that being said, I think the least y'all can do as one of the biggest networks on TV is buy my kid a plane ticket, let her go with me. So they did. They bought little Emma a plane ticket. And when we went out for the second time for the grand finale for the filming, we went out there and filmed on the 28th. And my little girl's birthday is on the 29th. And she turned 12 the night of filming. And I got to tell her happy birthday on national TV. Now, they didn't air that part because they had, just a certain amount of time that they could alter all that stuff in. But it was a great experience, not only for me, but for my child. I think it's something that she'll always remember. She acted a little embarrassed about it at first, but a couple of days later, she came up to me and said, Dad, that was one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. I know it was heartfelt. I know she enjoyed it. And with that being said, the show was great. I really enjoyed the show. It was nice. It gave me a little bit of notoriety. It made going to Kroger a whole different experience after the show. I mean, it was overwhelming at times. I knew that would kind of pass. When the COVID thing hit, it kind of downed it a little bit. It kind of dumbed it down a little bit. I still get it a lot. It gave a lot of notoriety to a lot of people that say, Whitfield, where's Whitfield County at? So, I mean, it did kind of help out with Dalton, Georgia, being out in LA and stuff. I've made some really good connections. They've talked about maybe even bringing us back for a couple other seasons because they kind of seemed like they thought we were maybe one of the fan favorites. I'm proud of my accomplishments. I'm not just saying this because he's in the office or he's sitting in here with us in this room, but none of this stuff would be possible if it wasn't for the sheriff. None of this stuff would be possible if it wasn't for Major Gibson. They don't have to let me do radio interviews. They don't have to let me go out to LA 2 or 3 times. They didn't have to let me drive the county vehicle to Albany, New York and back. They've allowed me to do all this stuff. It's made the sheriff's office, I think, look good. The first couple years of doing this, I'm just being honest, it was very stressful. I felt lost at times. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what road I should go down. But now, you know, when I won my episode on TV, I literally looked at my wife and said, pinch me, because a lot of things have happened. And I know hard work, dedication, and commitment. You know, the first year I thought that when I won the trophy and back in 2018, I thought, you know, there was maybe a little bit of luck involved with this, some hard work and dedication. 3 years back to back to back coming in first place. I don't think luck plays a factor in this anymore. I had a guy ask me one time, I told Ricky this earlier, I had a guy ask me one time, Todd, can I ask you a question? Could you do all this with another dog? Do you think you could have accomplished all this with another dog? And I don't know how to answer that, because 3 days in Alabama, when I went to Alabama, everybody there was 8 of us there that had got dogs. I'd seen their dogs biting them, disrespecting them. They had problems with their dogs. 3 days into it, I had 2 or 3 people saying, you are very lucky to have got that dog. I knew this from an early start, and I'm still very lucky to get him. I hope the dog lives forever, but we all know that that's not going to happen. And I don't know where I'll be, you know, when Eddie's gone one of these days. But I would like to say thank y'all to everyone. I'm very thankful for the community. I've had so many people come up to me, just like Lynn said just a little while ago. I mean, so many people came up to me and said that exact stuff that you said, and it makes me feel good. I never imagined I would be where I'm at in life at the sheriff's office, but it's been a very enjoyable experience. I've been there for going on 18 years. I hope I've made the sheriff proud. I've heard him talk about the dog, and I've heard Major talk about the dog, and like I said, who would have ever thought that when they took a chance on me, that I did set the bar high, but I never imagined that I would be able to accomplish everything that I have. And I'm grateful for being able to speak in front of y'all. And if y'all have any questions, feel free. I'm done kind of ranting about what I've done. But like I said, I've kind of went out of the normal with him. You know, he lives in the house with me. He sleeps in the bed with me at times. He climbs up in the bed with my kid. I encourage people to pet on him. The first year or two, I didn't really do that because I didn't really know what alley, like I said, I needed to go down. He's very friendly, very docile dog. He's 5 now. His leg's doing good, knock on wood. The future looks bright. You know, of course, we'll continue. You know, the next big thing for me, I guess, is that spelling bee that y'all got me involved in. Go ahead, sir. He's a hybrid, Dan. He's a half German Shepherd, half Belgian Malinois. He's 5 years old. Notably, the type of work that we do with dogs, you have a Dutch Shepherd, you have a full-blooded German Shepherd, you got variations of German Shepherds, and you've got the Belgian Malinois. That's kind of what you see. You're starting to see a little bit more of the hybrid breeds, and that's what Eddie is. So he's kind of the best of both worlds. You know, a full-blooded German Shepherd has problems with their hips. You know, a lot of times they'll have hip dysplasia and stuff like that. They tend to be a little heavier. It's not uncommon to have a 100-pound German Shepherd. Eddie's about 72, 73 pounds.
Are you going to show him to us?
I'm gonna bring him in. I'm gonna bring him in here in just a little bit. And
You've been saving his lunch for him right here.
Yeah. and I said,
Wear the arm, the shield for the bite. Is it Frank gonna do?
Frank can do it. Frank can do it. And like I said, you know, there was times when I just didn't feel like I didn't know what I was doing. And now at least I feel like I'm confident enough to know that I'm on the right track with this. And it's neat. I have a lot of people call me and ask me questions of how to fix problems with their dogs or how to do this and how to do that. And it's just kind of, I don't know. I told my mom when I was coming back from Madison County, Alabama, she said, well, son, how'd it go? I said, I came in first place again. And she was like, you're kidding. And I said, no. And I said, Mom, I think I might have finally made a name for myself in the dog world, you know, in the dog world. We've done well with it. He's a great dog. He is an exception to the rule. And I really think a lot about that dog. And it's nice to know that a lot of people in the nation knows who he is.
Have you trained other dogs before?
No, sir. No, sir. I had German Shepherds my whole life. That was predominantly my favorite breed growing up, just because of some of their defining characteristics of how they're pack oriented, how they're very family oriented. You know, I've had pet quality German Shepherd dogs when Emma was, you know, I had Bella, I had Blaze, and I had Eddie. I backed out of my driveway a couple of years ago when Bella was still alive, and I stopped and I looked at my wife and I said, who would have ever have imagined we'd have 3 German Shepherds? You know, and it just kind of happened, and it worked great. I could walk them all together. But no, sir, I've kept bees, I've had rabbits, I've had quail, I've had pet squirrels. I've just always, you know, there was a part of me growing up that wanted to be the veterinarian. You know, I've always been good with dogs, horses. Let me try to fix it. Let me see what I can do. So, I mean, I kind of knew, you know, I told Anna, as cliche as it was, when I put my name in for the spot, I said, you know, I kind of feel like I was born to do this job. But I've never trained. I could now. It's actually fairly simple. It all goes off Pavlov's theory of things, ringing bells and dogs salivating, and it's quite simple, really. But patience is definitely a virtue, and Eddie's taught me a lot of patience. He's just like a kid. A kid, when a kid's learning, a kid's learning. If you get impatient with a child while that child's learning, the learning switch shuts off, and you can't really do anything about it other than let's just take a break for a minute. And that's kind of how he is. But it's been interesting. Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about how he helps in your work, and do you get calls to, he's a drug dog that walks around the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Find drugs, or what?
Yeah.
Tell us how the department uses it.
Okay. You know, as far as Eddie goes, he's used for probable cause scenarios. So if an officer pulls a vehicle over and they even think that they're going to ask consent to search a vehicle, if somebody says, no, you're not searching my car, well, then that's kind of it. Unless I see something or smell something, I can't search the car. But if I'm really close, or if I can get close by to where I'm not prolonging the stop, and they can call me and say, hey, Todd, can you come over here real quick? This might be something. I can, as the law says, if you pull the car over, Ricky, while you're conducting your business, I can get Eddie out and just walk him around the exterior of that car. And if he starts behavioral changes and indicates, he's a passive dog, so he'll sit, or maybe sometimes he'll stare, but he's a sit dog. So if he sits on the car, then that gives us probable cause without a search warrant to search the vehicle. And of course, we train every Wednesday for that scenario. He can actually be used for an elderly person or for a child missing. I mean, it's not always a bite situation, but he can be used for that. Or if somebody commits a crime and takes off running, and if maybe they drop some articles in a field or in the grass, he can help out with that. I'm on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, if I get called out, I enjoy getting called out. It doesn't really happen all that much. You know, thankfully we live in a county that's not like, you know, a city like Chattanooga or a city like Rome. I've trained with all those guys. They really have their hands full, and they have a big, you know, 7, 8 dogs. Some people has 20 dogs. Louisiana has 14 to 20 dogs, and they utilize them all the time. But he can do, you know, mostly he's used for drugs or for tracking. If somebody does something that takes off running, we'll try to get a perimeter set up pretty quick and try to track the individual.
Did he participate when y'all were looking for those fugitives?
Yes, sir, he did. Yes, sir, he did. He did. And speaking of that, I think we had about 10 dogs on standby. We had about 150 boots maybe on the ground with about 20 agencies. I had people from I had Chattanooga guys calling me saying, if you need me, I'm en route. I said, come on. Rome guys calling me with a dog, if you need me, I'm en route. And I said, well, come on. We either need you or we won't. Just come on up here. So the way we done with that is we had a couple of dogs come up that has one job. And that is the bloodhounds from the prison. They'd come up and they just tracks all they do. So I said, let Jamie track with this bloodhound. Let me and Eddie kind of drift back, and we'll track with y'all. And then when we see the guy, or if the guy's exposed in some way, then y'all just kind of slide to the right and then let Eddie do what he does best, which is apprehend. And so we tried to track. We tracked for about 2.5 hours, and then darkness fell, and we all got tired, and the dogs was tired. So we had new boots, new dogs come in with the same exact scenario, and then maybe in 15 or 20 minutes later, we ended up catching that guy. So I mean, it was and And he can be used for multiple things. I mean, dogs can be taught to do anything. You know, there's dogs that can tell if you're fixing to have a seizure, and they'll come up and let you know. Kids with severe peanut allergies, they'll come in this room and run the dog around the table and stuff before a child comes in with severe peanut allergies. So, you know, but what Eddie's utilized for is drugs and tracking and apprehension is mostly what he's used for in article searches. Yes, sir.
When you say apprehension, does Eddie come and just, chest plant, knock the guy down, or does he grab an arm? Or?
He grabs an arm, or he'll grab whatever. He'll grab whatever is exposed. Like if somebody's hiding in a spot where just maybe their shoe or their foot's, he'll bite whatever. Some dogs are just trained just to bite one thing, and then when you take that one thing out of the equation and the dog don't see it, then they won't bite. So Eddie's been trained to bite whatever's exposed. Yeah, and of course in a training scenario, when he apprehends, it's different than in real life. You know, the dog thinks different, so it's kind of different. Anytime I get him out of that vehicle, he's thinking something, I just don't know what he's thinking. And he associates different places with what he's thinking. I go up to Chattanooga, like I said, every Wednesday, but twice a year they call me up there speaking of bite work. They'll call me up there and say, hey, Todd, we got a group of cadets going through. Twice a year, Chattanooga Police Department has sometimes 20 kids go through a cadet program, sometimes 40 kids go through a cadet program. Every one of those cadets, to be a law enforcement officer up in Chattanooga, they have to take a what's called a courage test, and it's a bite from a canine is what it is. And they always do it at the same place. Every single time they do it at the high school up there. So when I get Eddie out of the vehicle and he sees that field, he automatically thinks I'm fixing to bite somebody. So if he's thinking that, and I'm like, no, we're not biting, we're doing obedience, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do it, I have a hard time getting his mind where it needs to be at, because he's thinking, where's he at? Where's he at? So the dogs associate their environment with what they may or may not do. And exposure is a huge thing with dogs. When I first got Eddie, I was actually afraid I was going to take him away from me. Some dogs don't like dark rooms. Some dogs do not like gunfire. Some dogs don't like slick floors, and that was his downfall. When I got Eddie, he didn't like slick floors. So then we had to figure out, is it a courage thing or is it a confidence thing? And sometimes distinguishing that, because confidence you can build with repeated exposure. You can build confidence. Even if some of us are afraid of heights, with repeated exposure, our confidence will build. But courage, you're either born with courage or you're born without it. You can't teach somebody to have courage. And with a dog, and he hated slick floors. So how did I fix that? I walked him across slick floors 3 or 4 times a week. He didn't like it, but I done it. And when I brought him home, I went to Southeast all the time. Slick floors, slick floors, slick floors. Then finally, one day, Jared Hayes was with me. We walked across the gym floor, and the dog never even looked at the floor. And he never acted weird. And Jared goes, I'll be looked at. I said, we might have fixed that problem. Took 6 months, but we might have fixed it. So it's just kind of one of those deals. But anyway, unless y'all guys, yeah, Chuck. Yeah, I'll go.
Hey, go grab it?
Yeah, I'll go game. Chuck.
I was just commending you because they say, children and dogs are the best judge of character, so if that's big, well, but how old is he?
He's 5.
5 years old.
Yeah, and typically there's no set limit on, and this is my opinion, there's no set limit on when a dog, how long do we run a dog? How long is Eddie going to be in service? I don't know. Statistically or average speaking, we could say 7.5 years on average would be a good number. So that's 2.5 good more years of Eddie. But in my opinion, he's going to come to work with me till he can't get in and out of the vehicle. That's just my opinion, because he's a working dog. If nobody's ever had the pleasure or of owning a working dog, that's what he loves doing. He don't like sitting at the house wondering, why did Dad not take me to work with him? Those 5 weeks he sat at the house was not good on him at all. And he got depressed. He quit eating because it was almost like he was thinking, am I in trouble? Have I done something wrong? Why are you going to work and I'm not? So I'm going to take him to work with me till he just physically can't. I don't know when we'll retire him. I hope it's, there was a dog, Kilo, in Chattanooga that worked till he was 10 years old on the street. There's some dogs in Atlanta 10 years old still working. I think the diet's very important. So. But I'll go get him and y'all can pet him. We'll look at him. I might make him bark, or something like that. Do some cool trick.
Well, thank you, Todd. But he's going to come back in with Eddie. But I'll tell a little story about when I worked for the sheriff's department. There's a couple of we had a couple of dogs then, and Scott's McAllister's dog, Boris. I was in the narcotic unit. He was a narcotic dog. I didn't get around him. I was scared of him. He was a lot different detriment than his attitude was a lot different than Eddie's.
I just say, if you got a bag of pot on, put it on your neighbor's plate. He's got a pretty good nose, so. He's gonna hit.
Let's while he's getting Eddie, let's go ahead and do the pledge and the four-way test. Yes.
As Todd alluded to earlier, he is one of our spellers in our spelling bee this year. He and Eddie's gonna be there too. I don't know how well Eddie can spell, we're gonna find out one. But Alex Brown is also too. I'm sure they'd appreciate y'all's support.
Frank, I think it'd be a good idea to tell these people that we're watching them, because there's some just really strange antics up there.
Yeah, I've got you guys on camera up on the big screen here, so everybody sitting here is looking at you. You're the only one up there, Rob.
But
All right.
you got your beard groomed. Nice.
All right, let's pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The things they say or do is truth, is fair to all concerned, will it build goodwill and better friendships, will it be beneficial to all concerned. All right, well, next meeting is October the 27th, and feel free to hang around, see Eddie. Thank you.
I got it.